We have all this data now, but what's the context? How can it help me make better, faster decisions? Dr. Morris, Banner. There's another one. We're just starting to understand the value of the data that we have. David Higginson, Phoenix Children's Hospital. And here's my favorite one. AI will not replace radiologists, but radiologists that use AI will replace those who don't. Dr. Shifter from Banner. So this is, we hear all these comments about AI and how prevalent AI will be in helping us solve problems around staff burnout. We heard people talking about patient engagement. We heard people talking about how to improve clinical outcomes and how to deliver care in a more cost-effective manner. We're talking ultimately about this quadruple aim and how AI is going to help us take healthcare to the next level, whether it's in a clinical context inside of the hospital or in the context of population health management out of the hospital. AI is this critical enabler, but not because it's the latest technology and it's cool and it's the latest thing that we see around, but rather because if we give it access to the right data and we provide it with the right context, it can help us solve problems that we have never been able to solve before. And that's why at Philips we talk about adaptive intelligence. We think people first. We have a deep belief that the needs of clinicians, customers, and patients always need to be at the forefront, right? And that technology is there to serve their needs, to extend their capabilities, and to help them achieve better outcomes. And this is a hugely fertile ground for innovation. It's the next paradigm, as someone in the video said. But it also requires us to harness all this collective innovation power that exists within the ecosystem because it's complex. It's a very transformational technology. It requires us to enable dynamic collaborations between ecosystem partners, healthcare providers, academia, payers, policymakers, entrepreneurs, and health technology companies such as Philips. And it is not easy, right? We've seen the startups, we've had them throughout the program. It is hard to be an entrepreneur in healthcare, right? We believe, and we've seen, that, and this is precisely what we do here at HealthWorks when it comes to building or enabling these collaborations. And this is the ultimate goal of the HealthWorks startup program, to be able to partner up across the different players in that ecosystem and jointly get together to be able to solve these problems. And the startups play a pivotal role in that mix because they come with these fresh new ideas and they help us challenge the status quo, but they also face incredible barriers. How can I, as an entrepreneur, have access to physicians in order to help me validate my innovation or provide me with the data that I need to be able to work it out? How can I, as an entrepreneur, figure out the best regulatory path that can help me reconcile compliance with speed? How can I, as an entrepreneur, embed my innovation into the hospital workflow so that it can be used and consumed in the most effective manner? And none of this is technology related. In fact, technology is often not the issue. What is the issue or the challenge is how to make technology work so that it can be accepted, trusted, and embraced by people. And this can be often a daunting experience for some of these health tech entrepreneurs. And we've had a lot of interactions with entrepreneurs and startups in the in the last couple of years in the healthcare space, which is probably most acute in terms of the challenges that these players face. And one of the things that has become clear to me is that these challenges are the same for everyone, for every startup out there, irrespective of geography, irrespective of domain. But at the same time, one of the things that has become clear to me also is that how the more important these collaborations are to enable great innovation. And with this, I would like to open up the panel discussion because we're going to be touching upon some of these topics. I'm going to be joined by three distinguished panelists from the US and India, and we have them on the screen. I'm going to introduce them to you. They're all physicians, they're all practitioners, but they share a deep belief or a deep passion for innovation. So let me start by introducing them one by one. So we got Dr. Achi Ludomirsky, starting from left to right. Dr. Ludomirsky is a pediatric cardiologist and a professor of pediatrics at NYU School of Medicine. He's a pioneer in fetal and pediatric heart imaging. He has served in multiple committees, including being the former president of the Society of Pediatric Echocardiography. And next to all of that, he also shares a passion for entrepreneurship, being the co-founder of OnSight, a startup that took part in the HealthWorks program. Next, we have Dr. Adam Landman. Dr. Landman is an emergency physician. He's Chief Innovation Officer of Brigham and Women's Hospital and Associate Professor of Emergency Medicine at Harvard Medical School. He has a passion for innovation and the application of information technology to improve healthcare delivery. And also he's created and leads the Digital Innovation Hub at Brigham and Women's Hospital. And finally, Dr. Harsh Mahajan, joining us from India. Dr. Mahajan is a radiologist by training and one of the leading pioneers of imaging technology in India. He's the founder and chief radiologist of Mahajan Imaging, one of the leading imaging centers in India with multiple sites across the country. And he's a former president of the Indian Radiology and Imaging Association. And on top of that, he's got a strong interest in startups. He mentors them, he supports them, and he invests in them as well. So I think it's a great combination of, indeed, practitioners and people that are heavily involved in innovation. And I would like to welcome them with a big round of applause. So let me start with setting the context and setting the scene a little bit. And this is a question for the whole panel. We'll go one by one. Why is AI so important to healthcare, and what impact are you already seeing today? Let's start with Dr. Ludomirsky, please.
Good afternoon, Eindhoven. Thank you so much for bringing me in this prestigious panel. So artificial intelligence and deep learning partly occupy our regular day-to-day life. And in healthcare, it's not lagging behind. The healthcare now faces major challenges, both on the academic, medical, as well as administration. And it's very clear that AI has a major role in patient care, in research and education on one hand side, but also if you look at the challenges in healthcare these days, cost, quality, and safety are the major challenges we are facing every day. And AI has a role in all of them. As I said, both on the direct patient care that start from diagnosis and finish with treatment, as well as in the running of healthcare cooperation, hospitals, community hospital, and beyond. We're starting to see the impact already since we have major load of data, big data that we know that exists. We don't know exactly what to do with it. I think that's where AI comes in play.
Perfect. Thank you very much. By the way, I love the Philips Lumify that you have on the table. Let's go to Dr. Landman. What's your views on AI and healthcare?
First, thank you so much for the opportunity to participate in today's event. I want to echo and amplify some of the comments that we just heard. First is, while many of us are technophiles, this really isn't about the technology. We really have major grand challenges in healthcare, and I want to reiterate that what we're trying to do is address the quadruple aim: to improve population health, to improve the patient experience or the quality and safety of care delivered, to improve efficiencies, and similarly important to improve the clinician experience. The Institute of Medicine has a nice framework, the Learning Health System framework, that really shows that there's not a single panacea or solution to the quadruple aim. It will require many factors such as strong leadership, evidence-based medicine, changing culture, but it also calls out that technology is really a component of this. And I think, as we've been hearing, artificial intelligence and machine learning is clearly a key component and an exciting tool that we'll be able to add to our arsenal to help us improve and address the quadruple aim going forward.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Dr. Mahajan, would you like to share your views on this?
Yes, I would actually agree with what has been said already. And what I would say is that artificial intelligence is going to address the shortage of radiologists. That is a shortage which is a global one, but more so in the developing part of the world. It will make radiologists better, working as a radiologist assistant, amplifying, making them more accurate, making them quicker, being able to do much more in given point of time, and also would be able to address areas where there are no radiologists. There are vast swaths of land in many parts of the world where, finding a radiologist is a very rare thing. And their AI solutions would be able to come in. Of course, they need to get better and better before you can actually start trusting them. But that is where they may be able to do the work of a first read. At times, if they get good enough, being even able to replace a radiologist. Radiologists like me don't like that term, but that is something that's going to happen in part. But majorly, it's going to be about making radiologists better, quicker, trying to reduce the costs for healthcare delivery systems. As far as where it is currently in day-to-day clinical practice, I think there's a lot of promise. There are a lot of groups around the world working on this, small as well as large, but it's still a promise. There's very little that has been validated, which may be used on a day-to-day basis. But I feel as groups get together, as we understand more, as we find areas of application, this will happen very quickly, that they become clinically useful tools.
Great. Thank you very much, Dr. Mahajan. So I think we all agree that AI has huge potential. We talked briefly about the quadruple aim. We talked about how it can enhance current practice rather than replace. What do you think are the key challenges that we face today in order to get there? Maybe we can start with yourself, Dr. Ludomirsky.
I think the major challenge right now is the acceptance of the medical community of using artificial intelligence for the diagnosis and management and therapy. As a physician, we are a conservative bunch, and it takes time to convince sometimes the medical community of the advantages of using artificial intelligence and deep learning. We have to convince that artificial intelligence is not here to replace the physician. It's, as one of my mentors say, it's here to make you better doctor. And this is one of the challenges that will take time and convincing. I think we are on the way. I think the other challenges is with the regulatory, like the FDA, the CMS, and also other administration organization, in order to convince that AI really changed management. And once we are able to do that and prove by significant, thorough research, academic studies, I think AI will flourish in the healthcare.
Thank you very much. Dr. Landman, your views on the challenges?
Yeah, so I agree and echo what was just said around acceptance and the need for validation with strong research. I also want to add workflow integration. We really need to think about how AI will be delivered to the point of care. We're already seeing alert fatigue with physiologic monitors, with alerts in the EHR, and that leads to clinicians simply ignoring this information. And so we really need to think carefully about how do we design AI solutions so that they fit and show up at the right time, in the right place in the point of care, and that they are actionable.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Dr. Mahajan, your views?
I think even though we have tons of data with us all across, the problem is finding well-curated data. Radiology is a very, very complex field, and finding the scan and the report and correlating them, getting the correct ground truth, especially in the case of, say, a chest X-ray. It's very difficult. What may be normal for one radiologist, is not normal for another. And we've seen that in studies carried out at our institution itself. So I think well-curated data, a lot of data floating, even in the ecosystem, but really using NLP algorithms, what we have found is that really, if the reports are not accurate or are, all over the place, then you will not develop an accurate algorithm. Also, I think one of the challenges is, as a radiologist, I always look at the clinical picture when I'm looking at a scan, whereas currently, I think AI algorithms are not able to fuse those in with the deep learning that is going on. So there are challenges because of the complexity of the whole imaging and radiology field.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So I got 3 points here, takeaways in terms of the challenges. We heard about access to the right data. We heard about integration into the workflow. And we also heard about the fear of being replaced. Let me tackle the last one with Dr. Landman. So indeed, we've already heard a couple of times there's enormous discussion going on at the moment that AI, or how AI may or may not replace jobs within hospitals. What is your perspective on this, and how can we mitigate that from working at a hospital?
Thanks for raising this important challenge. So first, I agree with what's been said a couple times, that the Chuck Friedman's fundamental theorem of biomedical informatics, which he published in 2009, still applies, which really said that computers won't replace humans or clinicians, but that the computer plus a clinician will be greater than the clinician alone. And I do think that still stands. What I think we're seeing is a change in the type of work and who's performing that work as AI and computer technology is advancing. And so to give a sort of real world example, one of our researchers at the Brigham and Women's Hospital has taken an evidence-based protocol for hypertension management and created a virtual solution where a computer, in conjunction with a lay person, someone who does not have clinical training, can help start and titrate a patient on medications for hypertension, and is therefore able to offload this management from the primary care clinic or even the cardiology specialists. Now, what happens is this algorithm also filters out exceptions, and so if a patient is failing therapy or not fitting within the guidelines, then those cases are referred to advanced practice practitioners or physicians as needed. And so, I think for the next 5 years, I think this is true, but certainly want to reassess as technology continues to advance.
Great. Maybe just a follow-up question to you. Brigham and Women set up its own innovation hub, right? And how do you see the healthcare provider's role in driving new innovation, and what opportunities exist there to partner up with health technology companies such as Philips?
So and I may be biased here, but I think that healthcare providers and specifically academic medical centers are really critical in driving innovation. And this has been true for many years in pharmaceuticals and medical devices, and I think that this is going to be increasingly true in digital. Healthcare providers and specifically AMCs really have world-renowned researchers. We have expert clinicians. We have a diverse set of patients and a rich set of data. And I think those are key ingredients for success in research and innovation. But importantly, I don't think that we are the sole ingredient necessary to drive innovation, especially in digital. And it's really about the ecosystem. And so academic medical centers need to partner with industries like Philips, as well as startups, venture capitalists, government, to truly see the benefits of testing early stage research, doing the studies and creating the evidence, validating that artificial intelligence and other digital solutions are effective, and then finally translating that so it can be made available to patients and practitioners across the world. And I think just as an example, we had the privilege and honor of meeting some of the HealthWorks cohort a few weeks ago here in Boston, and it really showed me, as I saw the interactions, it really showed me the value in startups working with Philips, but also working with the healthcare providers in a true ecosystem. And just to share one example, one of the companies that we saw was ThinkSono. And they have been developing artificial tools and techniques within ultrasound, specifically around improving the diagnosis of deep vein thrombosis, or DVTs. And we had our clinicians from our emergency department and our home hospital program come and meet with this company. And they were truly excited for how the AI and the technology here could really advance care delivery both in the hospital environment and at home. And so I think it could be a true co-development partnership where our expert clinicians, our patients within our healthcare provider environment partner with Philips and early stage startups to help advance and iterate on the design of these new ideas, to help do the research studies to validate their impact, and then ultimately to scale them in our own institutions and help scale them across the world for patients.
Thank you. By the way, we'll have ThinkSono on stage later on in the second part of the program. Dr. Ludomirsky, at HealthWorks, we often see startups that are so focused on the solution, they lose sight of the problem, the problem they're trying to solve. Now, you are an entrepreneur as well, working on an AI-enabled ultrasound solution yourself, but also a cardiologist at the same time. How do you balance the needs of the patient in designing a solution?
That's a great question. As a co-founder of OnSight, the ultrasound medical company, and one of the participants at HealthWorks, I practically face this dilemma or a balance challenge every day. I think what we have to remember that practically most of the startups start with a problem, and from there come a solution. And usually the solution is not specific from the problem, and sometimes the end product is completely different from the first one we thought about. So the question, how do you keep it? How do you focus? And the way to do it is to emphasize on your customer. And the customer starts from your patients, the most important. Don't forget all the time, ask your patients, reassess the problem, and reassess what can you bring more to the table beyond the solution to one problem. Because to solve one problem is not enough these days. You have to create a platform. And HealthWorks really helps you significantly to focus on this question. Yes, we have a medical problem that we'd like to solve, but this is only the first step. You have to balance between the two, and I'll say it again, and I cannot re-emphasize. Go and emphasize and ask your customers. And your customers are not only your patients, that's the first step, but it's the healthcare provider, it's the administrators, it's the sales force that you want them to sell your product at the end. It's the people that promote your product and the solution. So that's, if you're reminding yourself all the time that that's what you have to do, then you'll find the balance. And you're not going to lose the patient as the center of your goal, because once you do that, the solution will cover many problems, or not only problem, especially not only the first problem that you try to solve.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for those wise words, and very much aligned with our thinking here at HealthWorks. Dr. Mahajan, Fanny, you are currently supporting many global startups with the initial development of their businesses, particularly when it comes to access to data and validation. What are some of the challenges facing these small organizations to deliver AI solutions, and how can corporates like Philips help?
I think the major challenge for them is initially to try to decide which is the right AI solution to be developed, which is the problem which needs to be solved. That in itself, there is desire in these youngsters to do something, but how to focus which disease, which imaging modality, that is the initial problem. Then, majorly what we found is for them to get data which is backed by solid ground truths. That even today, even though there's so much data available, that ground truth still remains a problem. Then after that, somehow one feels that people are working in silos. And that's where I would congratulate Philips HealthWorks for having, brought these companies together, and also with the providers, so that, it's not something, like you very rightly said, you start with a problem and you kind of along the way forget what the problem was that you were trying to solve. So keep them focused on where they are, because this is ultimately, the goal is to make a product which is deliverable and which can be bought and sold and which can be used to improve the healthcare delivery system. Also, what we are finding now is that validation, and good validation is a problem. These startups come up with products that they have, and they say they are fantastic. They've been, validated in very sterile kind of conditions, but to really validate them in the real world, in the radiology departments, in the ER, that is a challenge, and that's where I think there is still a huge vacuum for validation that exists. We work with a company out of Spain called Kibim, and they have what we feel is a very high quality quantitative imaging for white matter lesions in the brain, for lung using an X-ray, but validation. And that's where I think this relationship that you are building through the entire ecosystem would be very, very useful.
Great, thank you. By the way, we'll have Kibim also on stage later on. And just a very final question, a 30-second answer, if you can. Big difference. What are you most excited to see in the next 5 years? And how can a company like Philips, together with the startup community and the healthcare providers, contribute to reach that vision? If you can keep it snappy, 30 seconds, that would be great. Starting with Dr. Ludomirsky, please.
So, 29 seconds now. I'm really excited about the social impact that AI is bringing to healthcare. I think the legacy will be that if we can really provide AI in any subspecialty, radiology, oncology, cardiology, ultrasound, MRI, CT, doesn't matter, to the point of care, and install it in places like schools for screening, for example, for situation of of threatening life condition like hypertrophic cardiomyopathy on one hand side, and then we can provide it to developing countries to screen potential patient for significant disease and start to take care of them earlier, then the legacy of AI will stay forever.
Fantastic. Dr. Landman?
I'm hoping that we can use AI to help bring back the joy in the practice of medicine. Over the past several years in the United States, we've seen incredible adoption of electronic health records across all areas of healthcare. But that's led to some unintended consequences, notably increasing the administrative burden for our frontline providers, our clinicians and their practices, and has led to significant clinician burnout. And I think we have a real opportunity for newer technologies to help address this burnout, and specifically with artificial intelligence. Can we imagine if we take away some of the most painful processes for physicians, electronic documentation of clinic notes or prior authorization, and we automate these with AI? I think we have a true opportunity to allow clinicians to get back to practicing medicine and spending time with patients instead of computers.
Returning the joy of physicians, I like that. Dr. Mahajan, your views?
Yes, I think if we talk of Philips, it's very uniquely placed. It's an imaging company. It's a company that's into digital pathology. It's a company that's into genomics. It's a company that's into home health. It straddles the entire field, which can be actually affected by artificial intelligence. And also, now you have gone out and met these startups, you know really what's going on. And with the ecosystem of installed base that you have across the providers globally, I think Philips is very uniquely placed to meet the challenges of the future using AI.
And on that note, let's close the panel discussion and let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining.